Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mining Now. I'm your host, Jared Downey. Today, the first time on the show, Burns and McDonnell. We're going to cover a lot of ground. We've got two guests on. We've got Dave McLane. He is the mining manager at Burns McDonnell. And we've got Dan Kenny. He is the manager of mining construction at Burns McDonnell. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good to be here.
How's SME so far? It looks pretty busy behind you.
It is. Yeah. I think weather's not great here in Phoenix, so I think a lot of people are kind of come in, but no, it's been good. I think there's probably 6,000 people here, so a pretty big show.
Yeah, day one getting kicked off, so we're excited to be here, and should be a good couple of days.
Where do both of you hail from? Dave, we'll start with you, and then Dan.
Yeah, I'm based here in Phoenix, so short trip from our office to the convention center, just a couple miles.
Oh, nice.
But originally from Kentucky, so long way from home, but we really like Phoenix.
Yeah, and I originally from England, from the UK, and now kind of reside in Denver, but obviously spend quite a bit of my time with Dave and his folks down here in Phoenix, and also the office in Tucson. So
I want to give both of you a little bit of background of where you're from in the industry and all that sort of thing, but just for anybody that doesn't, and either one of you can kick off with it and talk back and forth. That's the fun of the platform. But can you just give an overview of Burns McDonnell for anybody who doesn't know the organization?
Yeah, sure. We're a fully integrated EPC contractor, and in the mining space, we're focused on infrastructure on the mine site, which there's a lot of infrastructure, and we cover most of it.
And then, so when you say most of it, what would be sort of the list?
Yeah, we do a lot on the power side. So that's mine power feed, to the actual mine site, but then distribution around the site, on-site generation, water treatment, pumping and piping, processing, some of the vertical infrastructure like shops and administrative buildings.
Yeah, we also do, we have a transportation group, so they do bridges, rail, and then power generation, whether that's kind of renewable or kind of traditional recip engines. We have a nuclear group as well, looking at small modular reactors and other pieces like that. So, Burns & Mac has a very big bench of different disciplines, different projects they work on. And, the hope is to bring that to mine sites, which is proven out pretty well so far.
Yeah, it seems unfair as much as you cover that I only get maybe 45 minutes to try to pack it in, but I'll do my best. Let's just start with a little bit of background. Dave, what's sort of your story within the mining industry?
Sure. Yeah, I have a degree in mining engineering and then an MBA and with an emphasis in finance. So I mentioned I grew up in Kentucky, so started my career in a little bit of coal, and then moved out west. Now been out west, I think around 10 years. And so started out west working on the owner side. So I got to work at some underground and surface operations, and then moved into consulting, which was a good change for me, and got to expose me to a lot of different areas of mine sites and a lot of different areas of the world. So I've got to work on 5 continents.
Wow.
Work in copper, gold, phosphates, and lithium and coal. So really a fun time. 13 years into my career, and it's been a lot of fun so far.
And I have to say, and Kentucky is kind of known for having deep roots, though. So no matter where you go, it's still probably home, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of those places I've wanted to visit. And then Dan, what's your background in the industry?
Yeah, so my background, originally a civil engineer, where Dave has been on the owner consultant side. I've been on the contractor, primarily construction side. I've, again, kind of like Dave, lived and worked in different countries. Australia, we did work in South America, North America, Africa, and so, that's kind of one of the fun, part of the fun of the industry is being able to kind of move around on projects, different commodities, copper, gold, lithium, a lot of work with kind of aluminum, bauxite, and then primarily for we've done work for kind of large mining companies, the Rio Tintos, the Freeport-McMorans, Asarco, BHP, those sort of folks. And so, I've seen probably in my career, which is probably 25 plus years in mining, it's been a lot of kind of supporting projects, project management, and whether that's been as an alliance partner with some of these companies, or an EPC or EPCM. So that's kind of the general background.
Let's talk about our Heavy Industry World Tour, brought to you by Savannah Equipment, supplying mining equipment worldwide. We are heading to events across North America and Australia and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsman.com to be part of Crownsman's Heavy Industry World Tour. Your partner in technical services, AMPS, have been industry leaders in technical services optimization systems and training since 2011. With a team of over 70 resource professionals, AMPS provides world-class support to mining technical services teams globally. AMPS builds the capabilities within teams on site to maximize results and unlock value in mining operations. With significant experience in operational underground and open pit engineering and geology, AMPS is passionate about delivering value to their clients across an array of professional services. If you're looking to improve your mine site's technical services, visit advancedmps.com or email partner@advancedmps.com today. MineTech helps mine sites like yours improve their safety, profitability, and compliance with world-class sound attenuation, water management, underground ventilation, and electrical solutions, enabling their customers to make and save millions of dollars through increased production, limited downtime, automation, and reduced energy consumption. Relied upon by more than 3,200 sites across 25 countries, their global team is standing by to offer end-to-end support and custom solutions for noisy mining machinery, toxic mine water of all qualities, metalliferous underground ventilation, and evolving electrical needs. Learn what MineTech could do for your site. Visit minetech.com/innovation.
In your travels, I'll ask both of you, because I wanted to get into the state of the industry. There's so much we're going to cover, but what out of the travels both of you have done, what country or area or wherever you've been stood out to you the most as the most different from one to the other, where like a culture shock? We went and go, oh, this is a different environment, a different mining environment.
Sure, yeah. So I think for me, Jared, I got to spend a lot of time in Argentina, the southern part of Argentina, so the Santa Cruz province. You're on kind of the tip of the world there. Antarctica is not that far away. So major change for me. It's obviously a Spanish-speaking country. My Spanish is not great, so spending, living and working there was a challenge. But getting to experience the culture and the way those mines operate and the way they build the infrastructure was really special. So I think that's probably the most interesting post I've had in my career so far.
On my side, I probably got two, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
We
overachiever,
right? So we did work in Suriname, which is South America. It kind of borders Guyana, Brazil, and that is a place where obviously there's bauxite mines there, there's processing refineries there, but working in a country that doesn't have a whole lot of skilled labor, and obviously trying to or executing projects in countries like that, and making sure that we do projects safe, we treat people well, the communities, other things like that was really an experience. And I guess the more on the kind of the civilized or the more kind of the Western side of things, we did work for in Australia, kind of in the northern part of Australia, up in the Northern Territory, at a place called Rio Tinto Alcan Gove. And there, obviously they had all the they had craft, trained craft, they had kind of the processes, systems, but it was really a challenge because everything primarily had to be barged into the refinery,
right.
Out of Darwin, and there was a road, but it was kind of closed for 6 months out of the year due to rain and things like that. So yeah, different places, probably different cultures, but both really enjoyable. So.
Well, in across the board in mining, ESG is a conversation. Even if you don't want to talk about it, you're going to have to. It is everywhere, and it has so many different layers and facets to it. Where do you and Dave? Maybe we'll start with you on it. Where do you sort of see, the state of mining? Where is sort of mining at with this huge ESG discussion that it's dealing with?
Yeah, I think, the exposure that we have most interaction with is on the environmental piece of ESG. And so many of our customers and many mining companies are looking at ways to decarbonize and really to reduce water consumption are two big focus areas for us as a company, but also for the clients that we work for. So we're talking about things like, renewable power generation on the mine site. So solar, wind, battery systems, electrification of haul trucks, hauling fleets, as well as kind of the light vehicle and support fleets. So we're seeing a lot of movement, on that side of the market. And I think, that kind of plays into the overall, ESG movement, not just in mining, but just in the industries, abroad, across all industries, really. It's we're pushing for electrification. We have new technologies coming out. We're looking to kind of mine some of those minerals to support batteries and the new technologies here in the U.S. So it all kind of plays together, Jared, for us. And so it's been really exciting to be a part of that and helping our customers achieve some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of ironic that the business we're in that is obviously feeding the energy transition with the minerals, critical pieces here that those are going into producing that electrification and the decarbonization areas, whether it's battery storage or EVs or transmission, distribution, and other areas like that. So.
Ora Digital Solutions seamlessly connects customers' physical and digital worlds so they can readily understand and optimize operations at every step of the value chain, from exploration to processing. Whether deployed individually or as a whole, Ora Digital Solutions technologies deliver intelligence for open cut and underground mines to make more precise and faster decisions. With a complete, timely, and accurate picture, operations can adapt to improve safety, drive productivity, reduce costs, and environmental impacts. To learn more about Ora Digital Solutions, visit orica.com/digital solutions today. Hey mining enthusiasts, registration for CIM Connect 2024 Vancouver from May 12th to 15th is now open. Last year, this convention had over 6,800 participants from 60 countries, with 1,796 delegates, 702 booths, and 320 presentations. Secure your spot and register now at convention.cim.org. CIM Connect 2024, where quality and innovation define the experience. LNH Industrial can custom engineer and build from the ground up any heavy equipment assembly or machine that you need for your operation. Their worldwide 24/7 field services network is on the job whenever you need heavy equipment troubleshooting, repairs, rebuilds, relocations, or replacements. And thanks to their specialized design and engineering and state-of-the-art manufacturing and repair services, they are a go-to international supplier for improved components and custom assemblies for heavy industrial machinery. Visit lnh.net to learn more.
Yeah, and in mining, you're talking about hopefully getting more mines in North America and just the process. I mean, this is a whole other conversation. That's an important conversation to have, is just the amount of time it's still taking to get a mine going. Are you involved in that side of it? Are you able to help just get some of these projects going a little quicker, or are you sort of coming in once it's been approved, or are you actually part of that process of saying, hey, this mine is efficient, it is run properly, it is set up in the way that's going to serve the environment properly, all those types of things? Are you sort of involved at that stage?
Yeah, we are, Jared. I mean, Burns McDonnell does work for brownfield operations that are trying to make upgrades and changes to their operations, and then we also serve clients that are opening brand new mining operations. And from the brownfield side, it's complicated because the mining industry hasn't implemented a lot of these things that we're talking about. Zero liquid discharge, water treatment facilities, solar plants, on-site power generation. But the good thing is a lot of other industries have, and Burns McDonnell works in those industries. So I think one of the values that we bring to the industry is some of that knowledge, from where we're doing this elsewhere and helping our mining partners, do it on their sites. So we're definitely involved in the front end. We are focused on the infrastructure side. So as far as, getting a permit to mine and some of those things, we don't help out there, but but on the infrastructure, we're involved in all phases.
I really want to. I want to spend some time. I'm good at both of you. Dan, we can start with you on this. Is some of these mines that you've been around the world seeing? Because I'm trying to wrap my own head around this. That you put in this massive infrastructure, and now they're trying to upgrade. They're trying to adopt new technology. You mentioned like zero liquid discharge site. And so, what does it take for a mine to actually adopt some of this technology? Like when you go to a mine, as you're going through it, do you see 10 places that would cost them just, potentially millions and millions of dollars? How do you sort of see it when you're going around the world? And sort of what is the range of adoption? I know it's a big question, but we've got time for a big answer.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think what you'd like to do is focus on kind of the low hanging fruit. Some of these larger mining clients have net zero goals. They have plans. ESG is obviously a piece of that, but that's where where we kind of can support that. So if let's say, for instance, the mine is looking to electrify their haul trucks or their fleet, well, the power's got to come from somewhere. A lot of these haul trucks will, in terms of the amount of energy that it takes to charge a haul truck, if it's not on a kind of a trolley rail system, is really significant. And so, we've supported them that way, really looking at different alternate kind of sources of power, whether that's solar, some wind, even things like geothermal, even kind of on-site power generation. And so it's not what I would say is it's probably not kind of a cookie cutter type approach for different mines. I think it's something that you kind of need to look at. Hey, are they near or fairly close to a metropolitan area? Are they, very remote? Is it, how can we, in terms of the kind of the transmission distribution, is it available? Is the power available? There's a lot of different factors I think you got to look at, and really, I think that's where, with our experience, we can evaluate that and just say, okay, well, here's what we think. Here's the kind of the suggested path, and plan that roadmap for the next kind of 10 years, and kind of help them with that. What to Dave's point, I think a lot of these or mining clients, mining is their core work. They hear about the possible kind of loans, grants, IRA, tax credits, things like that can support this kind of energy transition and this move to net zero, but they really don't know how to approach it. And I think that's where we've seen in other industries, we have that history, and I think we can put together a plan for them. So
yeah, Jared, to add to that, it's there is a big effect to other facilities on the mine site. If we're talking water or we're talking electrification, it's complicated. When you're talking about making major changes that we haven't seen in the industry, it can absolutely affect mining operations. Starting to charge haul trucks with 5 megawatt chargers can absolutely affect how your ball mill runs and other systems. So as a company, we come in and have to work on all of that and help work through the problems with the client. But it's really three groups in my mind that need to partner together to help with some of these new initiatives. And that's, of course, the mining customers who need to have the want to do this and want to make some of these changes. It's EPC companies like us who have the capabilities to come in and evaluate the site, do the advanced electrical modeling that's included, and really facilitate the engineering and the execution of these capital projects that, like Dan said, are typically not core mining type work. But it's also the OEMs, right? It's the equipment suppliers. So between those three groups, I think if you get those people in the room and everyone's working together, that's how we achieve some of these, step changes in mining.
When you're going to a client, though, are they saying, we want to do something? You have all the, Burns and Mac has all this capability. Tell us where we should be looking at. Or are they saying, hey, we need we need an autonomous fleet and we need zero liquid discharge and we need this, this, and this? Or are they coming and saying, hey, we need you to look at this operation and tell us, like, to your point, what's that low-hanging fruit? What are the big investments? What kind of timeline should we be looking at on this? We've got this goal for 10 years out. How are we going to actually do it? Like, what is the conversation actually built around?
Yeah, I don't think rarely they come to us and say, hey, we want to do this, this, and this. I think it's they have goals for call it kind of water usage, water management, recycling. They have obviously kind of power requirements that they know that their mine and their processing facility takes a certain amount of power, but they say, okay, well, if we wanted to electrify our fleet, or if we wanted to look at battery storage to support some of the kind of the peaking, and obviously mines run 24/7. So I think they have the general kind of criteria, and then figuring out the roadmap, the timeline, the specific projects, and also looking at how we can incorporate the tax credits, and I think is what we do best. I mean, I think it's more of the solutions, knowing their general criteria.
What? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Jared. No, it's a great question because we see different approaches to what customers come to us with, and what do they want to do. I would say the most common is they set kind of the goal, and sometimes it's even kind of a stretch goal or stretch target. They say we want to be here in these years. How do we get there? And there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different sustainability initiatives that are out there. They don't make sense at all sites, and so that's where we help, is kind of sit down, start at a high level, and kind of narrow the focus into what makes sense for that operation.
And I'd also say that mine sites are somewhat fluid. I mean, obviously they're mining ore, they're moving overburden around, they're moving, creating tailings ponds, things like that. So a lot of this stuff isn't permanent. A lot of it's got to be skidded. A lot of it's got to be kind of almost temporary, because of that kind of fluid nature of a mine. So
what you mentioned, like grants and things like that. What are sort of some of the main ones that people need to look at in terms of things like infrastructure and what have you, and development? Where are sort of the key areas?
Yeah, so what we've seen with our projects, the Department of Energy offers loans and grants, and that's something that a lot of the call it kind of critical mineral companies are looking at. There's the Inflation Reduction Act, tax credits, and we see obviously that's not a loan or a grant, but it is a credit after the project is completed. And then there's an infrastructure.
The Infrastructure Investment Act,
Right.
Investment and Jobs Act is another piece, and I think that more fuels the rest of society. It brings money to the table to build new bridges, to build new infrastructure, to upgrade transmission lines, to do some of these other sustainability measures outside of mining. But in turn, what do we need then? We need the raw materials to make those projects go. So it kind of all comes back to mining.
Yeah, and what I would also say is with all of that, with the Department of Energy loans, grants, IRA credits, that there's a way of executing that. A lot of them ask for kind of prevailing wage. A lot of them ask for a certain kind of FAR compliance, accounting procedures, other things like that. So if you don't start in that kind of mentality of this is how we're going to execute it, this is how we're going to manage and record the project, you are at risk of essentially not getting things like credits if you don't have all that in place. There's procurement rules and things like that. So I think, again, going back to the kind of probably experience we've seen in other areas, other industries, we have that knowledge, and it's we can't go and deal directly with the DOE, but certainly we can advise our key clients as to hey, this is this is something you might consider. So.
Is the technology we've discussed on the show before about, and there's videos if people want to go see it. There's videos of that are clearly mines that are not heavily regulated, and they're operating in ways that are abhorrent. It's just do you see the technology? I'll say the Western world of mining, or the North American market down into Latin America, some of these places like Peru and that. Are you seeing the technology starting to catch up with that? It can now, does it put us in a position to compete doing it right, is I guess really what I'm asking. Is that technology or support like or like grants and things like that, is stuff now being put into place that in the way the Western world can compete with doing it at that level, that it needs to be done safely and efficiently and environmentally responsible, but still be profitable and viable, with all those investments that it takes to do it?
Yeah, I think the technology, in a lot of ways exists, and absolutely we can be competitive in, the Americas market with other markets. There's still a lot of challenges, in the U.S. specifically. It's hard to get new projects permitted. I think there's a variety of reasons for that, and I'm sure, we could spend a whole show just talking about that. But I think in short, absolutely, technology is allowing for these processes to be more competitive, more efficient, safer. That's the mining industry in my 13 years has really come a long way, and I think that's important, Jared. When we look at some of these projects, it's not just mega sustainability projects. It doesn't have to be a 200 megawatt solar facility, or a $50 million zero liquid discharge. There's ways to improve operations and improve your sustainability on the mine site, but also improve your operation.
Mm-hmm.
We've looked at different processing facilities for clients, where when you talk to the operators and you talk to the folks at the plant, and you ask, hey, why are we doing it this way? Not that it's wrong or doesn't work. It works great. They've been doing it for a long time. There's a variety of reasons. Sometimes when we talk about water, mine sites use water for many different things, but in some of these areas, they've got plenty of water.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been doing it that way because it was a readily available resource. And now they're being asked are there substitutes? Can we recycle this?
Right.
Even though you still have, the resource available, but are there different ways to do it? And so I think, those projects are interesting, and ways that we're helping our customers, kind of on the smaller scale, the small cap, operations level type projects.
Are there any projects, just to spend the next back half of the interview going through? Are there some projects that stand out to you to make this a real world application? Are there projects that stand out? Dave, we can start with you on it. That you go, that it sort of exemplifies what we're talking about today. Where you go, they did it right. They adopted a new technology, whatever that is. Is there one that stands out to you that sort of exemplifies the work that you do with clients?
Yeah, I think, one example of that would be solar, right? Solar is well understood. It's been around for a long time. It's a great source of energy. And we're starting to see our mining customers adopt that. And so, we can talk to a kind of a specific example where, customer came and said, hey, they didn't need additional power. They just wanted to start using more renewable power. And when we think about solar, mining companies, in general, Jared, have three of the major things that you need for a solar facility. They've got a load, an electrical load, a need for energy. Mm-hmm. They've got typically a lot of land, which you need land for solar development. And they've got an appetite for the tax credit, which currently there's a 30% investment tax credit for solar. That's under the Inflation Reduction Act. That's a big deal, and that makes the project a lot more competitive. So when we look at a mining customer, this customer in particular, they're here in the southwestern United States. They have those three things. They wanted to go out and do solar. So, we started investigating, where can we build solar? Where does it make sense? How do we tie the new solar generation facility into their, existing electrical infrastructure on the site, which can be a challenge. It can be major upgrades. It can disrupt operations, but if you think about it, you plan it through, it's definitely achievable. And so through this process, we worked with them across, I think it was 5 different sites, including a refinery. And so looked at their different sites, worked out how much they could actually produce. And then a part of that is working with the utility as well. You can't just bring on generation on a mine site and you have to have that interaction, right? And so that's an interconnection study. That's a lot of work back and forth. So we work through that with the customer, and then you get into financials. And so, these projects often start out as we want to be more sustainable, and we think a way to do that is producing solar on our mine site, reducing the amount of power we draw from the utility grid, which is great. But then it comes down to, can we build this project? What's it going to cost us? How does it impact the rest of our business? Because mining companies are businesses just like any other, and they only have so much capital to spend on projects. And should we spend this money on this solar project, or should we buy another shovel to mine more material, right? And so we do those valuations, and I think some of the key findings that the listeners, I think could benefit from is understanding that if you compare a solar generation field on a mine site to a utility, developing one of these, it's different. The utility is a power producer. They're selling that power. The mine site is a power consumer, so they're using that power, and they're still relying on the grid. Dan mentioned earlier, mining companies operate typically 24 hours a day, and their load is pretty flat across that time period. The big power users, ball mills, and things like that, pretty much run all the time. And so, in the evenings, of course, we don't have solar, and so they rely back on the power grid to provide the energy they need to run their operations. And what we found is, in a lot of cases, 30 to 40% of the overall utility bill that a mining customer receives is a peak demand charge. And so the way that's viewed is really utilities look at what was the maximum amount of power that you asked us to provide you over, it's usually 15 or 30-minute intervals for a month. And whatever that number is, you're setting the bar there, and that's a charge. And so that has a pretty big impact on the overall financial viability of the project, because the solar really can't help you there, because sun's going to go down, you're still going to need that power, and so you're going to pull it from the grid. So when we do these financial evaluations, kind of at the end of these projects, it's something to consider, looking at. And what we've come to recommend and talk with our clients about is maybe looking at these projects financially from a little different angle. I think the 8 and 10% discount rate is pretty common when we're evaluating capital projects. But, for a sustainability project like a solar field, maybe you can lower that discount rate to 6%, and it really improves the financials of the project and helps it compare to the other fleet of capital projects a little bit better. So that's one thing you can do. And then I think another important area is making sure that you pair your the infrastructure type, the investment that you're going to make, with the right financing option. So a lot of mining companies self-finance projects like this, and so upfront it's a big capital outlay. But for a solar facility, that's going to save you money over 20, 25, 30-year period. So it might make a lot more sense to debt finance that over that time and kind of match up the investment with the financing strategy.
It's so unique to each one. Hey, when you're walking through this, you just hear that it's there certainly is no cookie cutter. By its very nature, mining is it's always in complicated environments. It's always different. You go out into Nevada, you're in one extreme climate, and then you go up into Canada and you're in the exact opposite. Dan, how about you? Is there something that stands out to you that goes, this is where Burns and Mac shines, or this is either an area that you really see you want to talk about, or maybe a specific project you go, this really exemplifies it?
Yeah, I mean, Dave talked about this solar project we looked at. I think where we shine is because we are kind of that integrated EPC company. They'll run the numbers. They'll come up with, this project is viable, and we want to put a 30 megawatt solar plant on the mine site. Like I mentioned, we can kind of support them with executing the work under the kind of the IRA protocols, but also it's putting that roadmap together on how do we, obviously developing the project through early engineering, detailed design, procuring, which is kind of an interesting area, because when you start talking electrical equipment, transformers, switchgear, there's long lead times on this equipment.
Yeah.
Some can be, 70 weeks out or what have you. So along with the photovoltaic cells and some of the actual solar equipment. So understanding all of that and the kind of the timeline about, how do we sequence and construct the project, and then the key thing is to construct it safely. We for a lot of the kind of utility clients for solar work, we do a lot of gigawatts of solar installations. So we have an automated kind of GPS pieing rig, which takes a lot of the kind of manual work out of that process. Things like we look at battery storage, if that's an area that we want to look at as well. We try and skid that equipment, so it's taking the work hours away from site and trying to reduce that safety hazard. So I think it's really going back to my kind of point about it's really trying to not just help with them on the kind of the financing and the study, but it's really trying to construct the project efficiently and then commission and starting it up and obviously giving them the return.
You mentioned the electrical, and that's sort of teed me up to something I wanted to ask. I forget which one of you were mentioning the three. You said there was three elements, one being OEM, and then
Yeah, so there's the mining company, wanting to do these projects. It's the OEMs to supply the equipment and support, and then it's an EPC contractor like ourselves to bring those components together to successfully execute a project.
I'm really curious about the OEM side of it. Obviously, we have a lot of them on the show, a lot of technology developers on the show. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, in some ways, you're bringing all of that together for the client to actually make it usable. How important is the work OEMs are doing? Because they, in a lot of ways, they're laying the groundwork for what is even possible to actually land on site, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's paramountly important. It's extremely important for the OEMs to work with us, work with the customers on developing the right solutions. There's a lot of options out there, and we spend a lot of time developing these relationships, working with the various OEMs. We're pretty agnostic. Our goal is a successful project. So what we look to do is to apply the right technology for the climate, for the application. A lot of things go into it, but it takes time, and it's an investment on our side, and it's investment on the equipment, the OEM supplier side, to make all this come together.
Yeah, and I'd also add as well, you mentioned all the different commodities and the different areas, and as you mine that ore, one of the key areas is to make sure that you do different levels of testing, right? So you may do a lab test with a certain process, and you kind of upgrade that to a demo plant, or now some of these OEMs have equipment they can kind of pull off the shelf, which is great. But sometimes when you're dealing with different ores, different impurities, understanding that and making sure that you build the project that is going to be most efficient is kind of key. So, really the OEMs are kind of the heart of the process, and then we integrate and kind of I guess flange up everything from a balance of plants perspective and an infrastructure perspective. So.
Yeah, it's typically not just one OEM, right? It's multiple different companies, and so we're making the connections between those pieces of equipment, supplying the power and the steam and the things needed to make it all flow correctly.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm sort of realizing. You're almost like, and in some cases, you almost end up probably being their R&D because you're out there piecing all this together. Do you get that opportunity? Is it sort of what they built and you're working within that? Or do you develop relationships to the point where you could say, hey, there's these projects that if this was offered by you, we could implement it. Do you get to that level of communication with an OEM?
Yeah, we do. And there's a lot of times where something doesn't exist off the shelf. So it's working with the OEM to say, hey, here's the problem that we're trying to solve. We know we have something that, works for this component of it, and something works over here, but not in those pieces don't come together in the right way. So, working together with them to make them come together is definitely a part of our workflow, and usually happens during kind of the feed process of the project.
Okay, I know I'm just sort of keeping my eye on time, so I know it's a little bit limited today. maybe just to both of you, Dan, we'll start with you and then go over to you,
Yeah.
Dave. What is the most exciting thing that you see in the industry right now? There's a lot going on. But when you look at mining and you've been in it long enough that you've seen it sort of develop, what do you go, this is going to be interesting in the future?
I've kind of been through, like I said, I've been in mining over 25 years, and I've seen a lot of it move offshore. There were aluminum companies that had refineries, smelters, a lot of the industry in the US, and gradually you kind of, whether that's around environmental, air emissions, other things like that, that it's essentially kind of moved offshore. Maybe it's been moved to be closer to the ore body, to the resource. But what I see as exciting is that is now coming back, and I think the whole critical minerals, trying to not trying to remove that reliance on overseas mining and processing, refining, and bringing it back to the US and North America, I think is great. And I mean, the other thing is it's going both. We're trying to go up the chain, up the supply chain, and kind of down as well. So we're now exploring more, whether it's rare earths, whether it's, how do we get, do we go underground for copper? Do we do all these other things? And they're feeding within the US, that those critical minerals, metals are now feeding the EV plants and the data centers and all this sort of stuff. And that I think is the exciting part for me. I've seen that decline and kind of the pushing offshore, and I've seen it starting to come back. And
right. Well, and like Elon, you see Elon, like Musk, he's talking about like getting involved, or he did get involved in funding a lithium mine, and like you're seeing a lot of that sort of stuff. That, I mean, that was almost unheard of, that a car manufacturer even would have that conversation publicly. It's quite an interesting environment, actually.
I mean, he's gone. I mean, they're looking to build a lithium refinery in Texas, and then he's going, as your point, he's going further upstream and saying, hey, I don't want to be kind of held hostage by not being able to get ore, or not be able to kind of feed my refinery. And I think some companies are doing that. It's important for them. So
well, and it just, what it came to my mind too is when that starts to happen, you're going to that approach to efficiency and manufacturing. Like when you start seeing someone like that coming in, of course, if he does it, then people will follow. You'll notice, just like similar to you're being in different industries, so you bring that experience in. Those companies, if they start getting into that, they'll bring a different methodology, and it will just see improvement, I would think. I mean, I would hope, I should say. You don't know until it happens. But Dave, what about you? What do you look for and go, this is an exciting either thing we're seeing now in mining, or a thing that we're going to see?
Yeah, I think for me, I've spent a lot of my career on the mine design, portion of the industry, where we're actually designing the excavations. And, when you're in a role like that, your primary goal is, how do we do this safely? How do we design a mine that's going to be safe for the people, our friends and family members that are working in it? My wife is in the mining industry. She works for Rio Tinto. And so that's, first and foremost. And then secondly, it's how do we be as efficient as possible? How do we mine as much of this resource as we can? Because often when you go in and remove resource, if you don't take it kind of in that first pass, then it's very difficult to take later. And so having that kind of background in my career, now we're starting to see, companies like Rio Tinto and Freeport and many others investing a lot of technology and new processing techniques, and looking at, mines that have been closed, and how do we reopen those? How do we leach? One of Freeport's slogans is "leach the last drop." How do we get in there and really get the most out of these resources? So it's pulling in new technologies. It's working with scientists, which I think is, super interesting. It's pulling in chemical companies that previously, haven't been involved in the mining industry,
right?
But using their expertise and coming together and developing all these new techniques. And that's really exciting for me. And so I'm excited to see where that takes our industry, and how we can get better and continually get better. So I think over the next, couple decades, we're going to see a lot more of that. A a lot more of that production here in the U.S. of some of these critical minerals and things that we need to support the new technology that we're developing, right? We're seeing that we need a lot bigger quantities of some of these raw materials, and ultimately it comes back to us. It comes back to the mining industry
Right.
to really supply that, supply that for everyone, for all the changes that the world is seeing. So super
Yeah,
excited.
and I think there's probably a bit of education as well there that, for people to have their electric vehicles or their iPads or other things like that. I think it's educating that hey, if we are now essentially mining and processing in the US, it's not now overseas in China or or Korea, or it's not kind of it's not on your doorway. I mean, basically, it's kind of remote. Bringing it back home and understanding that, hey, this is a key industry for everything that you use
Yeah.
in your daily life is a big thing as well. So yeah, hopefully with that in mind and people start to understand it, then they'll certainly get behind the industry. And I think also that, with these ESG policies and a lot of these major miners are looking at that, I think that's going to just help that kind of community understanding and hopefully, boost up the industry a bit here. So
Well, Dave, I think was it Dave or Dan? One of you said you saw an interview that I was getting interviewed, and
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
yeah, that and that is something I truly like in construction, is that it disrupts traffic, it disrupts your your way of life while you're putting up bridges
yeah,
and buildings, and we all just accept it. We even cheer it on. There's in a community there might be 10 people that don't want anything built or something, but in general we're all supportive of it. And then it comes to mining, which is just everything. It is literally in everything. And it just there is that disconnect that has happened, which is it didn't happen with me because I mean I played hockey. There was a mining truck and a mining shovel outside the hockey rink, that Tech
right.
Resources probably donated years ago.
Yep.
And so you just grew up with it. But if you don't, you just don't understand. You just see a giant hole in the side of the mountain. you know, and it's a shock.
Right.
It's actually shocking if you aren't used to seeing it because it's so big and such a big scale. But I do think, with that said, I do think the mining industry is getting much better. 4 years ago, getting an operator to come on our show would be impossible. Now, all the big
Right.
companies are getting lined up to do our show, talk about, and not just a 10-minute thing about how they're being environmentally friendly, but actually talk about technology they're implementing, really digging into it. And that is a major shift I've seen. So it's an exciting time, especially when in your role at Burns and Mac, you're right in the thick of it. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And this channel that you guys do, like that's very much a hope of mine that folks outside of the industry,
Yes.
watch these and learn about the industry. I mean, it's not just the iPads and the cell phones and things like that, but it's your medicines and it's the equipment that saves lives, and it's things that impact you in ways that you would never know. And
Yeah, food, phosphates.
absolutely,
Nothing, right.
and so the
Fertilizer.
more people that understand that, I think, the better off we'll be. And because, as mining professionals, our ultimate goal is to do what we do as sustainably as we can. And we don't want to cause impact to, we don't want to cause a traffic jam, right? We want to be, behind the scenes, but also kind of in the limelight a little bit to show people that our industry it's not kind of what they picture it as.
Yeah.
I think.
And I think that's really the shift that just needed to happen. And I think it is happening. It's just that mining thought, no, we're supposed to be quiet. We're not supposed to talk about it. And now they're realizing, no. It has to be the opposite. You got to educate. And gentlemen, I know I'm keeping you. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I hope we get to do this again. I mean, Burns and Mac in 45 minutes. I can't really do it justice, but I hope I got to at least let you both lay out a little bit about the value you offer, because it's such a great company, and I hope we get to do it again.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
It's great you guys come here to SME and Phoenix this year to do it. Really fun. Appreciate the opportunity.
Well, it's part of our North American mining tour. Then we've got a tour in Australia where we'll do another 20 episodes. So, and it just, the more we do, the more we unpack that needs to happen. So it's been tons of fun. Thank you both. We'll talk again soon. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Of course, Dan and Dave will put their LinkedIns in the description. If you're seeing this on LinkedIn, we'll be tagging them. You just click and get to them. And then there's the Burns and Mac website. I think they have a YouTube channel that you can go check out. Lots of information. Thanks for watching, everybody. Keep supporting mining, and we will see you on the next episode of Mining Now.